Welcome to FUNC YOU UP, the podcast that gives you the best of functional medicine, nutrition, and wellness in 8 minutes or less.
Welcome back, everyone. This is FUNC YOU UP with Michelle Miller, clinical nutritionist.
And this is Diana Orchant, functional medicine registered dietitian.
We have a great topic today all about magnesium. So magnesium is this amazing mineral that our body uses a lot of it. I think we were talking before we started recording, it's involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. So obviously there could be some side effects if we don't have enough of this circulating at all times.
And what's so interesting is that over 80% of people are deficient in this crucial mineral.
So let's just kind of first start out with, how do we know if we're not getting enough of what are the initial signs from our body that we might not be having enough circulating magnesium in our body?
There are so many, and that's why testing is really important. But to name a few, it would be fatigue, muscle cramps is a big one, migraines, bad PMS symptoms, cramping, anxiety.
Constipation is a big one we see, right? Yeah.
Constipation we see a lot. Another one that goes off of like muscle spasms and muscle twitching is Charlie horses at night. It can often be a magnesium deficiency.
There's also a lot of in terms of like brain fog, memory, anxiety, things handling like our mood. I've even seen a lot of ADHD protocols or like depression protocols where they're using a lot of, checking for magnesium deficiency. So it's just proof, I guess, how many different areas of our body that magnesium is really influencing and protecting and help to function properly. And it's tricky because a lot of these symptoms they're so general, they're so widespread. So this is one of the reasons we really feel strongly about testing. Now, talk to us a little bit about some of the limitations with testing and I guess what our best options are.
Yeah, so testing for magnesium is definitely important, but blood tests aren't always the most accurate since over half of your body's stores of magnesium are in bones and soft tissues. So it can be kind of hard to find.
So if we're going to do a blood test for magnesium, we're going to look at the magnesium that's inside the red blood cell. So the actual marker you would want to be testing is usually called RBC mag or RBC Mg, RBC magnesium, because at least you're going to have a slightly more accurate reading. But we also like to test vitamin D when we're looking at magnesium, because the two of those are very dependent on each other for function and absorption. So it's also really good if you find out your magnesium's low, you definitely want to get your vitamin D checked or vice versa.
And one thing I love about magnesium is that it's just so relaxing. It's probably my favorite mineral because of all of its relaxing properties. It relaxes our arteries, our blood vessels, which is why it's so great for hypertension, and it's really pushed through various dietary interventions for hypertension. It relaxes our bodies, our muscles, our minds. It's so beautiful in so many ways for those reasons.
Yeah, I mean, this is a mineral that's used in a lot of our recovering protocols for athletes. When you need those muscles to really relax, this is going to be helpful. We'll kind of talk to you a little bit about what forms are going to be best. But also I think it's interesting that whole idea of like calming. Minerals are often very calming. Magnesium takes the cake because you think of like it can relax the muscles, it can relax the mind, it can relax the mood, it can relax, the blood flow, kind of calm that down. It's also used a lot of times for constipation and relaxes the GI tract. So that is kind of the general theme with magnesium. Now, we are looking at nutrition first. We have a food first approach. So obviously we first want to be making sure our diet is nutrient dense and kind of rich with foods that are filled with magnesium. Diana, take us through what would be our best bets if we're trying to get a little bit more magnesium into our diet.
So the first thing I always think of is leafy greens. They're filled with magnesium, whether it's Swiss chard, arugula, spinach. And then I also think of nuts and seeds having a lot of magnesium, as well as legumes, beans, whole grains, and avocados.
Those are great. And I mean, the beautiful thing about food, right, is that there's so many other great minerals and vitamins in all of these foods as well. but you get a really nice blend of magnesium in all of those foods. So pick your favorite, make sure you're incorporating a couple of those throughout the day. However, if your levels are already in the deficient range or on the lower side, or if your body just naturally has a higher need for it, we might need to talk about some supplementation just to boost that up a little bit more. So with magnesium, there are a ton of different forms of magnesium. You go into GNC, Vitamin Shop, your favorite, health food store, you start looking at magnesium supplements, and there are different forms of it. There's different types. You can see sprays, lotion, capsules, powders. It's like, where do we start? So we thought we would break down this supplement and kind of when it is best to use what forms. So let's start out with things like memory, brain function, focus, kind of the things that are going to be helpful for more of like the brain and the mood. What form of magnesium would be best for that?
Yeah, so that's going to be magnesium L-threonate. So it's really known for enhancing memory and brain function. And a lot of people find that they want to take this in the morning because it kind of gives their brain that extra boost. And it can protect against a lot of the effects of aging too.
Love that. Okay, now in terms of sleep, we get a lot of clients who are using magnesium to kind of calm them down, wind them down, and actually help with their sleep protocol or sleep management. What would be the best form for that?
That's going to be magnesium glycinate, or you might also see it as bisglycinate. And it's really good for sleep, but it's also one of the best absorbed versions. And so it helps raise your magnesium levels quickly, especially if you're deficient, and really does help get a more restful night's sleep. So, but one of my personal favorites of magnesium that I don't even think people realize is magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salts.
Love it. So we get a lot of clients who are looking for improved recovery. Maybe they're athletes, maybe they're rehabbing, or maybe you're just like me. And if you walk too many steps in a day, you end up with muscle cramps. Or if you wear the wrong high heels, you end up with a Charlie horse in the middle of the night. So that is a really good sign that you could be dealing with some magnesium deficiency. And so something like an Epsom salt bath could be wonderful. It really relaxes the body. You do have to be aware that magnesium sulfite, these Epsom salt baths, can also start to detox you a little bit. So you want to be sure to drink plenty of water, get a good night's sleep afterwards. You'll know if you overdid it the next day, if you actually feel like you got hit by a truck. I made that mistake once. So take it slow, kind of get used to the dosage. But also, I would say in terms of muscle cramping, if you didn't want to take a bath, if you didn't have the time, you could also take something like magnesium malate or magnesium citramate. Those are really good for, again, muscle twitches, muscle cramping, muscle soreness, good for recovery, and that's an oral form. You might find that in a powder, you might find it in a capsule, but both of those ways would be really helpful as well.
And there's also, we think about magnesium for using it for constipation.
Yes.
I think a lot of people often reach for that Calm brand on the shelf, which has magnesium citrate in it. And it's very relaxing, but it also can help get the bowels moving. In addition to magnesium oxide, which is really known for helping with constipation, especially if you're having less than one bowel movement a day. But sometimes we find also a blend of these is what works the best. It can promote, if you find just the right blend of maybe an oxide, citrate, glycinate, you're getting all of those benefits of enhanced sleep, enhanced bowel movements, improved relaxation.
I totally agree. I think some of our favorite products are blends that we see. If I could, pick any from the group, I would say like a magnesium threonate with a glycinate and a citrate or malate would be kind of my favorite blends. We only use magnesium oxide in kind of more severe constipation cases because often you can easily get into a place where you're compensating with magnesium when maybe someone just isn't drinking enough water, or maybe they're just not getting enough fiber in the diet. So we really only use it in more extreme cases. But if you're really dealing with some serious constipation and you want to try magnesium, the oxide is definitely the way to go. But Diana, great point about the blend. I think the blends work really well together.
Yeah, I'd say our biggest piece of advice is probably start low and then go slow. So we always say maybe cut the recommended dose that's on the bottle in half so that you're not overdoing it, maybe running to the bathroom, feeling a little too relaxed.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, and I think same thing like with the Epsom salt bath, start slow, so maybe you don't kind of trigger a detox response. With the glycinate, I've never had somebody like use it for sleep and feel too groggy in the morning, but I do think, your body has a balance and a threshold that it's going to hit for anything. And so it is always good to kind of start out and see if your levels are really, really low and you start with half of the dose, you might not actually feel anything because your levels are just so low. So that's why it is good to just kind of slowly work up and see what the dosage is, for you personally. If you are working with a qualified healthcare practitioner, they can guide you on doses above what's recommended on the label. Typically, if you're working on this and kind of doing it yourself, wouldn't recommend going above the recommended dosage that's on the nutrition label. But it's such an interesting mineral. There's so many needs for it, and it really is interesting how the different forms of it can be customized based on exactly what your health goals are or how that magnesium deficiency might be manifesting in your body.
Yeah, and that's why we say don't just run into any convenience store and pick up a bottle, because as you can see, there are so many different types that are really meant to be targeted at specific things going on in the body. So you have to be careful with which one you select. But more importantly, a lot of people might think that you could overdose on magnesium, where you obviously could if you took way too much, but you don't have to worry so much about balancing your supplement with the magnesium that you're getting from foods if you are supplementing, because your kidneys really do a great job of keeping the balance by filtering out excess magnesium from foods.
I love that. So, I mean, one of my favorite forms of getting dietary magnesium is through chocolate. Is that going to be a problem if I overdo that?
If you're eating too much dark chocolate, no, you're not going to overdo the magnesium. But one really interesting fact is that when women are PMSing around, their cycle, they may crave dark chocolate. It's pretty common. And a lot of times that's because they're actually craving magnesium.
Isn't it fascinating? Your body's like asking for the nutrients it needs. I love that. That's so interesting. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you picked up some new information on magnesium, and keep eating those foods rich in magnesium. Keep your stores nice and high. And we'd love to hear maybe what forms of magnesium you're using, what foods are your favorites to kind of keep these levels up. You can always reach out to us
via email at funkyouup@physiologicnyc.com or via Instagram at physiologicnyc.
Be sure to send this episode over to any of your friends and family you think would benefit from it, and we look forward to catching you next time on Funk You Up. Thanks, guys.
See you next time.
You've been listening to Funk You Up. Be sure to like, review, and subscribe for more daily tips on living well.